new age is upon us, and yet the past refuses to rest in its shallow grave. For those who hide behind the false image of the Son of Man shall stand before God. It has begun, the beginning of the end.
Now going on 22 years of my life, studying the release, being able to see where these people literally copied, plagiarized directly from African people to make up this European version of Christianity. Yes, I'm saying a European version of Christianity because African people were Christians before white folks were Christian. In fact, we were persecuted for being Christians in Africa, in North Africa, long before the Romans were even Christians. We're going to deal with that. Christianity that existed in the Nile Valley. Also, what happened when Europeans got a hold of Christianity? And after all, what kind of Christians did they make us when they brought us over on the good ship Jesus, the grace of God, and the Holy Mary, the name of their slave ships? Made us a totally different Christians. We want to deal with that. Here we see the Kandake's treasure is reading a Bible. And this is around 42 to 52 AD. And he's reading the Bible, and after he gets information from Philip, he goes south back into the land of Nubia or to the Christian nation of Meroe. Now that tells us that Africans along the banks of the Nile were already Christians before Romans were Christians, because this is around 42 to 52 AD. What gave rise to the Aksumite Christian civilization and Christian religion in Ethiopia was the fall of Meroe, and the Christian religion went into Aksum. The Fu, that is an Kushite symbol of the Meroe Ethiopians that go back thousands of years, that you see on the churches of Ethiopia. So the legacy and tradition is still passed down. Okay, now you see here this barbarian here that you may know as Hitler. He actually copied it directly. It goes all the way back to the Kushites, and also it was part of the Aksumites. The X had nothing to do with no St. Andrew's X. That is an African X that goes all the way back to the Kushites, who used the X for the resurrection of the body. It was called the caressing of the body. That goes all the way back to Asar, who came up out of Ethiopia, showing this is a caressing, where the idea of Christ came from, for the metamorphosis, for the spirit to leave the body, that I dealt with in Christianity last time. That's why in Ethiopia, you see the body wrapped up like a mummy for a metamorphosis, like a caterpillar crawling on the ground. It forms into a cocoon. A metamorphosis takes place what? A butterfly. So it had nothing to do with a physical body, but a spiritual body is what the Kushites talked about. This is the largest rock monolithic church built in the world. It's built in the form of an ark, but it's a Christian church. But going inside, you see the beautiful angelical realm of the angel, African angels that we haven't seen. In Ethiopia, you also see St. George slaying the dragon, but that's equally an ancient African story, because the Coptics, you see Haru in the form of a falcon sitting on the horse slaying the crocodile. But you go and see, when you look at this transition, as I show our groups in Kemet, to show it's been passed down from thousands of years, when Haru slayed the hippo, they represented Set. So it's an ancient African story that's passed down for thousands of years. It ends up in Christianity today. You finally reached the great and holy city of Aksum.
Now we're here.
You finally made it to the Aksumite Empire, or what was the seat of the Aksumite Empire. Of these great stelas are still here, and some of them have been dated back to 1,000 years BC, and some believed to be of King Azana around 325 AD, during the time of the Christian emperor that actually predates Constantine. And this one here, about 70 feet tall. I know we saw a lot in Egypt of the ancient monuments, but throughout the whole Nile Valley, we see ancient monuments that existed in the ancient Kushite civilization and the ancient Aksumite civilization. But this is one of the most impressive sites of these ancient stelas here, 13 stories high, and also has the door, symbolic door, as you saw in ancient Kemet, to show this is all part of the Nile Valley cultural civilization. And this chapel right here is where the Ark of the Covenant is supposed to be. Those of us who are familiar with the Ark of the Covenant, that's where you see the tablet or the 10 Commandments. The tradition of this ark is an ancient African story from the Nile Valley. It did not start in Jerusalem. It started in the Nile Valley.
What we're looking at right here is the Ark of the Covenant. Again, we're using cartoons, animation, because nobody has been able to identify where the hell the Ark of Covenant is. Some people say it's in Ethiopia, but yet and still, we still have not physically seen this artifact. And it don't make no difference one way or another, but here it is. What I want you to focus on is the two angels with their wings touching. Where did it come from? Here you're looking at Isis and Nephthys, which are the protector goddesses of the great god Osir, and all of the deceased who went on into Amenta, which was the Egyptians' heaven. They were the protector goddesses that made sure that you made it to Amenta. Now what you're looking at again is another, of course, a copy. It is not the original of the Ark of Covenant. Again, it's showing the angels with their wings touching. Now what you're looking at again is an original right off of Tutankhamun's burial coffin. It shows again Nephthys and the great goddess Isis, who are protecting him on his way to Amenta, which is again the heaven for the ancient Nile Valley Africans.
All right, brothers and sisters, as you can see, this is a most spectacular sight right here in Lalibela. This is one of the most famous churches. When we see pictures of Ethiopia, this is the one that generally stands out to the world. But it's definitely a most impressive. It's standing on its own rock. It's standing on their own living rock bed. If we can understand, relate to that, it's their own living rock bed that they actually used and carved it out. This was African ingenuity here that built these structures. When we go down and you're standing up on the hill, as magnificent as this is, as you can see it carved out of this rock bed here, but it's even going to be more impressive as you get further down into it. And here, when you go into Ethiopia, you see the Ark and you see the Black Madonna right here. The Black Madonna. After all, the Black Madonna is an ancient African, Cushite, Ethiopian Madonna and child that came up out of Africa over 4,100 years BC. That's the origin of it. I said, this is the origin of where it came from. You're an ancient people.
Right here. Now this is the Black Madonna right here in Bethlehem. This is in the Church of the Nativity. Okay? This is the one in Bethlehem, the Church of the Nativity. Go look it up. It is nothing but a later variation of our Set and Horus. I'm sorry. That's evident, man. This is more ancient. The Nile Valley is so what we got to understand that really what we doing is nothing but what our fathers and mothers did, but we put our own spin on it. And the next generation coming after us gonna put a spin on this one, and the one that gonna put a spin, but it's always a core culture and practice of a people that stay the same. This is the same thing, but the oldest is that come up out of the Nile Valley. That show you that a lot of what they call in Christianity is really Nile Valley science. In the earth, up into 322 AD under Constantine, even though anything before 322 AD with Constantine, that's Nile Valley. That's an assault. Jesus ain't even on the scene yet.
Exactly.
They're not taking it yet. Exactly. They still fighting them motherfuckers. Under Constantine is when it really was forced down our throat. That's when motherfuckers became Christians. Okay?
We want to deal with the images behind closed doors in the cellar where the Pope secretly worships the Black Madonna. I have the visual documentation. We're going to see it. They are now, as you see the Madonna and child right here of Ethiopia, they are now removing the Black Madonna, and now you see the white ones are going up now. Keep in mind, it was the Jesuits. It was the Jesuits who came in, these religious gangsters who called themselves the Society of Jesus to try to bring in Roman Catholicism into Ethiopia. It was the Senyos who they almost converted. In fact, they did convert. It was his father, Fossil, I'll talk about in a minute, who was able to get these Jesuits out of Ethiopia to save the Orthodox African Christianity in Ethiopia. So many of the churches you see today have a white Madonna. This is showing where they're trying to, again, enslave Ethiopia to their Roman Catholicism. After all, when you go into Europe, they're worshiping a Black Madonna. That's why when the brother called out the Holy Mary, I had to say the black one. But the Pope still worships a black Madonna in the cellar in Rome. He secretly worships a black Madonna.
And so we see right here that the black Madonnas were taken right from Aset and Heru. And so right there, I'm going to tell you right now, there is no Jesus. That's going to hurt you. Because the Jesus, Mary, Joseph is the rape of Asa, Aset, and Heru. Bottom line, there is no Jesus. You cannot paint Jesus black. There is no black Jesus. It's just a sign. You got to go back to the original. Can't do it. I know it's hurting. I know it's hurting. Because we have been through this for so long. And we actually believe that what our people taught us was true. They didn't know no better shit. We just waking up. We're just waking up. But we have to, this is still us though. Don't fight it. This is still our history. You see this? This black Madonna right here, if I'm not mistaken, is in Spain. Both of these are European black Madonnas. Taking it straight from Aset and Heru. See, the original Madonnas in Europe were black. And the most sacred Madonnas in Europe today are still black. You will see thousands of bowing down to these black Madonnas. I was down in Mexico. They had Jesus up there, but he had brown skin. It looked like them. But we the only people that worship another man like that. It's sickening. They got to start with that God figure. This black Madonna right here, this right here is at the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. This is over the grotto where they say Jesus was born. This is a black Madonna in Bethlehem over the grotto where Jesus supposedly was born. We know it's a fairy tale. So this shows what the true Madonna and child was, because they took it from Aset and they took it from Heru. And then you got to understand that Aset had went up into Europe. They was worshiping Aset in Greece and Rome. You got the Herculean worship of Aset. This is Diana. This is a Greco-Roman goddess who was taken from Aset. This shows you that in Europe that they was worshiping the black Madonna before Mary and Jesus. See, y'all don't understand that. So Mary and Jesus is just a modern day representation of an old concept that we have always worshipped our woman. You see, it's black. And they made specifically for sure that she was black, because everything else is white. This is the Lady of Czestochowa. This is in Poland. This is the one that the Pope bowed down to. Pitch black. They ask the question, why is all these Madonnas black? And they're going to say, well, after burning the candles in the church for so many years, that the smoke turned them black. And then why ain't turning nothing else black? You got one in Bethlehem, one in Poland. That's some strong ass smoke. Rastafarians ain't got smoke that strong. Look at this. That's a beautiful representation of the black Madonna. And child, I could respect that. I could respect it because I know the origin of it. It's nothing but Aset and it's nothing but Heru.
The ancient land of Egypt is tied to 4 of the world's major religions, from the many gods of the pharaohs to the one God of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, Egypt's dominant religion today. These interwoven religions all found inspiration and innovation in Egypt, land of the gods.
There are many parallels between Egyptian religion and Christian teaching. Now, we don't know whether this is just because human beings have a certain similarity with each other, or whether there were actual influences, which there may well have been. There are ancient stories about the god Osiris who died and was dismembered and then brought back to life. And the story of Jesus tells, of course, the story of a man who's executed and tortured and then brought back to life. In the minds of Egyptian Christians, there would have surely been parallels.
Likewise, the Holy Trinity of the Coptic Church, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, echoed the central trio of Egyptian gods: Osiris the father, Horus the son, and Isis, the mother goddess. Some of the most striking similarities can be found in religious icons, such as Isis, the mother goddess, and her son Horus.
In the Christian church, we have the Christ child who sits on the lap of his mother, the Virgin Mary. And there are many of us who maintain that the Christ child on the lap of the Virgin Mary is the visual appropriation by the Christians of this very venerable icon of ancient Egypt.
Go to your temples for proof and validation and research and see the temples. It says the carving from the temples of Ipidasut, Karnak is called today. Sahu Nepet, Orion was Lord of the heavens. So here we see that this is Sahu, this is Neb, and this is Pet. So our ancestors saw Orion was Lord of the heavens. They carved it on the temples. But why did they put it there? That's what we want to look at. They saw, as we go back to the scriptures, we're going to bring the scriptures in the court of law. Well, is it in the scriptures? Yes, it's in the scriptures. In Amos, chapter 5, verse 8, it says, seeking him that maketh the 7 stars of Orion. Uh-oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Seeking him that maketh the 7 stars of Orion. Well, our ancestors saw that Asar, our spiritual father, and the Zep-Tepi, for our spirit to go back to him, to rise up our caress, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the constellation of Orion long before it was in Amos and the scriptures was even in existence. This is the Zep-Tepi, or the first time of creation. Our ancestors saw through the constellation, through the heavenly body, through astrotheology, through the cosmos, the first divine mother and father for them to live for eternity. A set represented Sahu, called Ceres today, and Asar represented Orion.
What are you looking at right now is the Giza Plateau, the pyramid of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure. And as you can see, it is aligned with the 3 stars in Orion's belt. Let us read. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. On earth as it is in heaven. Matthew 6, verse 9 through 10.
Our spiritual mother and father that we carved on the temples. Here we see the earliest story of Asar, who had an evil brother named Set. Many versions of the story, who got 72 conspirators to crucify him. Here we see this is long before the Cain and Abel story. You got it carved on the temples. And although you see it carved on the temples on the outside, still on the inside, they're still beautifully painted black. It's through this story of the union of Asar and Asar's resurrection, through the union of Asar and Aset, they have a holy child. It's told on the papyruses where the name paper came from. We see Tahuti, we did not worship animals, but Tahuti, the divine nectar, the messenger corresponding to Gabriel in the gospel, announces to the goddess Aset that she give a divine immaculate conception and virgin birth. So here you had this spiritual story where Tahuti came, who was a spiritual law, said Aset would have a holy child. This is long before Gabriel, the angel of the Lord, came through the back door and told Mary that she was going to have an immaculate conception. Now, our story was more spiritual because Tahuti gave the call, and Amun came to Asar and said that your wife Aset would have an immaculate conception.
And so this is at Abydos. This is where you can see this. In most other temples, they didn't carve it all out. But this is Isis in the form of the falcon. She's receiving the holy sperm from Asar. You understand? This is through Amun-Ra. He didn't have one. So a spiritual phallus had been put in place so she can receive the sperm, and from that union came Haru. The Immaculate Conception. Right there. Fucking up your goddamn Christmas. Look at that. That's the queen. And you see right there the throne, which is the symbol for Aset. Because the throne went through the woman. Unlike in the patriarchal system of the Hebrews, the Muslims, and the Christian, where it goes through the man. It goes through the woman in Africa. Your bloodline is traced through your mama. That is the purest bloodline. For the Lord God is a sun and a shield. The Lord will give grace and glory. No good thing will be withheld from them that walk uprightly. Psalm 84:11. For the Lord God is a sun and a shield. You see the shield? See the sun? Okay then. Okay? But unto you that fear my name shall the Son, in this instance, capital, of righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and shall go forth and grow up as calves of the star. Malachi 4:2. Go look it up. Go look it up. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of righteousness arise with healing in his wings. Somebody been stealing. Somebody been stealing. It lets you know it fits right with the architecture. It fits right with the symbolisms off of the walls, because that's where they stole it. That's why when you're dealing with the Bible, they can never show you any physical artifacts, because basically where they stole it from, if they give you images of what the verse is actually saying, it would be nothing but an imitation of what you've seen on the walls of ancient Egypt, Nubia, and Ethiopia. Now what you're looking at is an image, and it is a very powerful image, because it displays again how they took concepts up out of Egypt. It speaks, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Psalm 23, verse 4. Is it a coincidence? It's nothing but thievery. Again, let's go on to the eyes of Ra. And I'm reading from Proverbs 22, verse 12. The eyes of the Lord preserve knowledge, and he overthroweth the words of the transgressors. Coincidence? I mean, you can take these verses and you can put them right up under ancient Egyptian reliefs, and it will speak right to the relief, because that is exactly where they got them, right up off of the walls of ancient Kemet. Let us move on to the Hebrews worshiping of the golden calf, the Kemetic Nile Valley goddess of creation. This is exactly what I'm talking about when you catch somebody with the damn goods right in their hands. I mean, you just basically just flat out caught thieving. When you take these deities that anyone who can do the research can show that these were deities in Egypt, showing you just like you stealing the images, you were stealing the sacred writing right up off of the papyruses, right up off of the tombs, right up off of the pyramids. The black mother of creation, Heru. And so right here you see the black king Tutankhamun. He's sucking from a udder of the golden calf, Heru, the golden cow Heru. He's being nourished. That's his mother. That's the spiritual mother that exists in what we call Mother Nature, or Mud Nature, Mu, which was the wife of Amun.
The surrogate mother is Heru. Her symbol is a cow. Why the cow? Because she represented the great Mother Earth. Now let's look at this, because on their own Torah books right here, a closer view of that, it says this. This court and chapel formed a special unit within the great temple. They were used for the celebration of the day of the child in his cradle. A festival commemorating the birth of Horus, that we called Heru, which, coming as it did at the close of Egyptian year, offers a curious resemblance to the Christian festival of Christmas. A curious resemblance. Thousands of years before their stuff, but it's a curious resemblance. Not only that, they go on to say that this small temple was called the Menmesi, or meaning the birthhouse in the ancient Kemetic, or they call Egyptian. The reliefs on the wall portray the divine birth and childhood of an infant, Heru. Now here we see the rites which related to Horus, Osiris, Horus, the father, and his death. This is where we get the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost from. And this early trihood of Asar, Aset, and Heru, brothers and sisters. On these temples you see Heru. She was a Tanihisian, or what is known as a Nubian goddess that came up from the south. Why did they got Hathor, or Heru, that our ancestors called him, over the European Jesus? Is that animal worship going on in the manger? Let's go after this now. See the cow Hathor over the European Jesus? Our ancestors always placed Hathor over the Pharaoh to rule because he was the divine king. He was called the King of Kings, the Sarah, the Son of God. Every king or sultan represented that this was the surrogate mother was Hathor and her symbol was the cow. So every sultan king was the Haru king who was protected by the Holy Mother, and her name was also Murray, meaning love that was changed to Mary. By the way, you shouldn't say love. That's white folks' term. Okay? We call it Murray, that they corrupted it into Mary. That's literally a copy off of your tombs thousands of years ago, where you see the cow was always over the Haru king as you see the cow over the white Jesus.
Now, you're looking at the Gospel of Judas, 260 AD. You can go read the National Geographic. They found that right there. That's in Upper Egypt. That's Nubia. That's Nubia. And then you got the Nag Hammadi Gospels. You can get that down at True Bookstore also. The Nag Hammadi Gospel from the Gnostics. You understand? The fact is, it's written on papyrus. That's what the oldest manuscripts of Christianity is written on. It's written on papyrus, an indigenous plant that come up out the Nile. If they had not come into Egypt, the Hebrew wouldn't even know how to damn write. Hebrew wouldn't even know how to damn write. Damn right. Damn right. What do you see on this Gospel of Judas, 260 AD? You see the Ankh. You see the Ankh still on there. That's because they was taken from the scrolls of ancient Egypt. I know it hurt you. It should. So you got to see the evolution of the book. The early books was written on papyrus. Papyrus come from Kemet. Right. It's an indigenous African plant. That show you right there where they got their origins from. Tell me nothing about no damn Christianity. That's some Johnny-come-lately philosophies that they took up out of the ancient Nile Valley teaching.
Joshua, late Egypt, 2nd century. What I want y'all to notice is on papyrus. Again, Bible, Egypt, Matthew, Egypt, first half of the 4th century. And it says, unique texts of the gospel, 8 chapters, are the earliest known of this part of the Bible, coming up out of Egypt. Earliest known. It's on papyrus, Leviticus, Egypt, late century. What I'm showing you is this is where they translated or stole what you call the earliest works of the Hebraic religion, Christian religion. They were stealing that shit up out of the temples in ancient Kemet and converting it. And so this one says the oldest manuscript of this part of the Bible, Leviticus, Egypt, late 2nd century. This is out of the Scowen collection. And you can go look that up. The Scowen collection. The oldest manuscript of Jonah and 1 Peter. Egypt, 3rd century. This is what I'm showing you. These is the oldest ones. These are the oldest parts of the goddamn Bible. This is 3rd century in Egypt.
Now you look here at this church. It's either D.C. or it's Philadelphia, where this church is. You can see they still got the ark. It's nothing but our Holy Family. This is the Holy Family, the womb, the phallus, and the feminine and masculine attributes. That's life. Ain't no life without that. Fucking your Christmas up.
The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus Christ, chapters 20 through 44, were taken from the text known as Unto Thee I Grant. Now let's go into chapter 55. Jesus passes the 7th brotherhood test, and in the purple room of the temple receives the 7th, the highest degree, the Christ. He leaves the temple a conqueror. This is in Egypt. This is in Egypt. This is where he receives his 7th, the highest degree of Christ. He receives it in Egypt. Why is this not taught? Let's go into chapter 54. That gives the clear reference of what I'm talking about. Jesus becomes a private pupil of the Hierophant and is taught the mysteries of Egypt. In passing the 7th test, he works in the chamber of the dead. In Egypt, not Canaan, not Mecca, not Morocco, not America, Egypt is where he receives his degree of Christ. Plagiarism. Upon your brow I place this diadem, in the great lodge of the heavens and earth, you are the Christ. In Egypt.
Spirituality is a way of accepting the fact that there is a spiritual force in the universe larger than all of mankind. But someone had to come along and invent a word called God. And someone had to say of another God and say, mine is better than yours. And someone had to create faith. Someone said, I have the true faith. Religion is the organization of spirituality into something that became the handmaiden of conquerors. Nearly all religions were brought to people and imposed on people by conquerors and used as the framework to control their minds. My main point here is that if you are the child of God and God is a part of you, then in your imagination, God's supposed to look like you. And when you accept a picture of the deity assigned to you by another people, you become the spiritual prisoners of that other people.
The representation of God should always be the great. It should always be the black, because it can produce all things. The representation of God should always be the great. It should always be the black, because it can produce all things. The representation of God should always be the great. It should always be the black, because it can produce all things. The representation of God should always be the great. It should always be the black, because it can produce all things.